Hi, welcome to In a Pickle Knitting. My name is Donna, and this is a podcast about knitting mostly, and a little bit of children's literature with a fiber twist. And today is Thursday, January 4th, 2018, episode 11 of the podcast. And today I have one finished object, a few works in progress, and a little something planned for later on. Also talk about some drawings that we've done from a couple of our knit-alongs, and talk about a giveaway. If this is the first time you've ever visited, thank you so much for joining us today. And if you've come back again, I welcome you back, and I'm so happy that you've come back. December was a busy month where I tried to film Vlogmas every day. I did miss a couple of days, which at the very end I will try to talk to you about what happened there and some things going on. But let's go ahead and get started right away with a finished object. So my only finished object today is the Wonderland pair of socks. I did show you on the last podcast when I had one sock finished, but I have finished both socks now, and I love them. I love the color. They fit very nicely. Really enjoyed the knit. A very easy to memorize lace pattern, and these were the Wonderland socks, and the pattern is part of a collection by Socks for Mom. And I'm waiting for the next one to come along. So that's my only object that I finished this time. So my first work in progress is my Christmas Eve cast on. And this project changed a bit. As I went to cast on Christmas Eve, I found it was a difficult time for me, and I absolutely could not concentrate on the pattern. While the Danny Bobbins, 'Twas the Night Before Christmas, Danny of Little Bobbins, 'Twas the Night Before Christmas sock pattern is not terribly difficult, it required me to think, and that was not something that I found was going to happen. So I started off knitting, and I had planned this red cuff and then green for the body of the sock. So I did get the cuff cast on. I think I did 15 rows of a 2x2 rib, though the pattern was a 1x1 twisted rib. I have to, I love that cuff on a sock. It's beautiful and it stretches nicely, but I have to really work at not getting a ladder on the sides when I do twisted rib. I don't get ladders using DPNs or magic glue. I just don't, and yet I do when I have a twisted rib or a pattern that starts with a purl stitch as my first stitch. So I usually try to adjust a pattern that way, but I just decided I wasn't going to work hard at that, so I decided I'll just do a 2x2 rib, and then when I got to the body of the sock, I just started doing stockinette and let it go. So I did about an inch or so of that and did not knit on them for a few days. And when I went back, I thought, you know, I'm not really sure I'm gonna like this just red and green. Maybe I would have, but I came up with another plan. So I'll show you what I have. I am doing them on a size 1, my Chai Goo mini twist needles. I'm doing them 2 at a time. Cuff down, which is what I usually do. Now what I had was a pair of 50-gram balls, one in red, one in green. These are by Unplanned Peacock. It is a 75 superwash merino wool, 25% nylon, but it's a different, because it almost is shiny. It's almost a little bit fuzzy, but I like the way, let me get them close there for you to see. I like the way they look, and I like knitting with the yarn, but you'll see sometimes there's like a little bit of a sparkle. So what I decided to do was I decided to do a Fibonacci pattern, and I already had a lot of the green. So I went with 21 stripes of green, rounds of green, and then 13 of red, 8 of green, 5 of red, 3 green, 2 red, 1 green, 1 red. And then I measured, because my thought was I'll just do this and then turn around and do it backwards down the opposite direction down the foot. But so they had to be equal amounts, and this wasn't long enough for the foot with a toe and a heel in there too. So I decided to add white, which I don't know if I'm going to end up liking or not. This is where the heel will go in the middle of this section. And I have a little heel planned, but I have started the Fibonacci going the other direction. So I've got 1, 1, 2, 3, 5, and then I'm starting the red will be 8 stripes. So then it'll do the opposite. And then I will do the toe in green. I have it planned that the last stripe will be red, this large section will be red. I wanted it to be opposite because I only have 50 grams of each one. I didn't want to run out of any yarn, and I'd already used red up here. So I'm going to do a green toe. And then I have something planned for the heels. They will have some white, but we'll see how it turns out. I'm not going to say what I'm doing because I might have to rip it out. So anyway, these will be a pair of the Christmas socks. I had said I wanted to maybe get upwards of 12 Christmas socks, and I think I have 3 right now already. So these are my Christmas Eve cast on, and I hope to finish those up maybe this week. So that was my first work in progress. My second work in progress is also a pair of socks. Now for this next year, I have several knitting goals. Regarding socks, I had talked about wanting to use a lot of my self-striping yarn, so I'd like to use about 12 of those and get socks made out of them. But I also want to use my sock blanks for socks. So I pulled out a sock blank. This was the last sock blank I received from my Andre Sue Knits Mystery Club. And it is robins in trees, branches of trees with ornaments. So a Christmassy feel. So this pair can be a pair of Christmas socks as well, little non-traditional, particular colors. The ornaments are, lighter green, and then that's a coral. And it came with a mini skein in that color. Let's see, put that there. And that's the same color as the robin redbreast. So what I decided to do is use the coral for the cuff, and I'm just doing a plain stockinette sock. It does look textured, but of course that's because the yarn from a sock blank comes off wiggly, which doesn't bother me at all when I'm knitting. I think, I tension my yarn. Let's see if I can get this. So I tension my yarn like this, and it pulls it out while I'm taking the stitch, so it doesn't bother me. It puffs back into that. As soon as you block them, they're just as smooth as any sock. This little progress keeper came with the sock set, the sock blank, the mini skein, and this, and it matches so nicely. So that was a really nice club to belong to. I enjoyed it. This was the last sock blank in that particular group that I did. So I'm going to do these as my take-along sock because I find it so easy to travel with this. I actually love knitting off a sock blank because there's no ball of yarn to go popping off my lap on the floor or something, even though, I can have my yarn in a project bag or in a yarn bowl, of which I have a few. I just find yarn and I have those twirly things too. This just is, for me, it just fits. Wait, I am using my Carbons DPNs. They're size 1.5 US, and I always do 3 needles because I find that triangle to be a more sturdy arrangement than having a square, which you would get if you had your stitches on 4 needles and knit with the 5th. So I always do it, almost always do it this way. So that's my second work in progress. And now let me get my third work in progress. I had the last podcast, I'm going to pause here and get my pattern. Sorry for that. I wanted to be able to show you the pattern since the last time I talked to you about doing the shawl. I didn't have the pattern with me that time. This is the Surprise Party Shawl by Helen Stewart of Curious Handmade. And this was a collaborative project that she did with Hugh Loco, Nicole of Hugh Loco, dyed up 2 different yarn kits. And this was presented at Rhinebeck this year. And it was based on the, well, kept influenced by, I don't know, I'm at loss for words today, by the Grocery Girls. I think one yarn set is I Can't Even, and this is, the other one is Shut the Front Door, or something like that. So you could purchase those, but I really wanted to use stash yarn, and I had a set of minis, and this shawl takes 1.5 skeins of a main color and then a 5 color set of minis that I think each one needs to be 20 grams. Well, I had the set of minis, and I actually had 2 sets of the minis. I purchased it twice, planning a different project that didn't quite work out. So I really wanted to use these, and just needed the main color because you needed to have 2 skeins of it. I didn't have anything in fingering weight that would go with this set of minis. So I did purchase the yarn, the main color yarn, and that is by Ba. It's the La Jolla base, which is 100% superwash merino. You get 400 yards and 115 grams. So it's a plump fingering weight. And the color that I'm using is black pearl. And I have used this yarn before, and I have several skeins of it up here on the shelf that I've planned to use other times. I enjoy knitting with this. It has a nice twist to it. Let's see if I can, if you can see the twist there. It's hard on the black, but so the mini set is by Frolicking Feet, and it's a mini gradient set number 11 traditional. And you get 6 100-yard skeins, so in total about 5 ounces, so a little bit more than a skein of yarn. So let me explain about what I did with the colors. This is the first color, which is getting blown out there a little bit. It's just a cream. And this yarn has a very similar twist. I might not be able to show you, but to the Ba La Jolla, and feels about the same weight. This color, and then there is another gray, and then a darker gray, and then there is this one. Now you'll see it looks black with some gray in it, and then a pop of color in red. So when I looked at it with the black, I just thought this didn't seem to, it goes nicely with all of this. It was just the grays didn't seem to have this warmer tone to them. And so I decided, since I had 2 sets, to take one of the cream color ones, and I over dyed it with gray and just tried to make a lighter shade of this. So I'm starting with a lighter gray. And then I've got these grays. And I thought that would work with my red. That would give me the 5. But then this skein was a problem because it really just looks black when you start knitting it up. That little bit of gray, and then the way the pattern is, it just didn't work. So ultimately, I'm going to use this one anyway and not use that one. So let me show you what it is. I am just under 20%. My next row is an increase row. This is a half pie shawl, and so your increase rows happen sporadically, but when they happen, they double the stitches or come close to doubling the stitches. So I'm about to double my stitches with the next row. So here it is with my black as the main color, and then you see these double rows separated by the main color of the different gradients. So I started with that light gray I over dyed, the gray in the set, the next gray in the set, then I put the red, and then I put the cream after that. So these seem, you know, close, but they're really not the same. And whatever, I like it. I think I'm going to be very happy with it. The shawl has some simple lace. It's got a lot of garter, and then it's got this twisted rib here, which I like the way it shows up, at least, you know, as I'm holding it on this black. I hope when I'm all done, it will still show up. I know sometimes you don't see things on black, but. So this is Surprise Party Shawl. I'm having fun with it. I did stop where I did without the increase so that I could just hold it up a little more easily. So getting ready to increase and then keep working there. So that's really what I'm working on right now. So those are my works in progress. And now I'd like to talk about something I'm planning to start working on. So my coming up plans, I'm actually going to cast this on today, even though it looks like I have plenty to be working on anyway. I'm going to get myself in a pickle probably, which has happened more than once. I had purchased the Nora George Advent Calendar for the holidays, and when I opened my first one, I used all 24 lovely, lovely yarn. But that particular day, I saw two different people, I think, posts on Instagram or maybe on a podcast where they showed their first one, and it wasn't the same color as mine. And so I kind of paused, because what my plan had been was I had purchased the knit vent from Curious Handmade, and her first project is called the Land of Sweets Cowl. And it used the very same set of minis from the Advent Calendar that I had purchased. And I thought, oh, that will be so much fun. I'll just follow along and I'll end up with the same cowl. Although these are not the colors. She she wanted to keep the surprise, so she changed the colors on here so that you didn't have to have your surprise spoiled if you wanted to be surprised each day, which is kind of the point of an Advent calendar, is to be surprised. Of course, anybody can do it any way they like, but I wanted to, you know, every day have something I didn't know was coming that day. So I worried then that they might not have been put together all the same way, probably by design, you know, because really what does it matter if you're getting all 24, which particular day you get them? But then along with the cowl, I was afraid maybe mine might put two next to each other that might have looked better not next to each other. So I thought, you know what? I'm just going to wait. I'm going to wait and see if when it's all over what Helen's looked like, or just how I want to put them together. So that's what I'm going to do. But I wasn't in a rush to do it until I was listening to the Curious Handmade audio podcast, and she said she's decided to keep her knit along for Knit Vent open until the end of January. And I thought, hey, I can do it. I can still finish it and just do a color a day. I'm a few days behind. It's January 4th. So I have wound up 4 colors. And of course, I already had them to look at. So I just decided, now let me see which I decided. This one I think is going, and I don't have names for any of the colors anyway. This is going to be my first color. And I think this one is going to be my second color. And my third color. And my fourth color. So today I'm going to try to play catch up and get all caught up and have 4 of the stripes done from the Land of Sweets cowl. I'm going to actually open her pattern and show you the second page where she holds it up. Now, she said you don't have to do all the sections. And there were a few colors that I decided to pull back. So I think I'm going, instead of having 24 stripes, I'm going to have 18. Still plenty long enough. It's a really long cowl that's just going to, you know, scrunch up around your neck. So that's my next project. My next working project, I'm going to start it this afternoon. And hopefully by this evening have the first 4 colors on. And then tomorrow I will do 1 color a day along with doing some other project. I'm hoping that there's 5 or 6 grams left from each one of these that I can put it into my blanket, my mitered square blanket, because that would be 24 more squares that I could add to that. But I will wait, and if there aren't in fact enough, that may be what I do for February, is try to use up the rest of those in my blanket. So that is all I have in the way of finished objects, works in progress, and what's coming next for right now. And so now it's time for our fiber-related children's literature book. And our book today is called Weaving the Rainbow. It is written by George Ella Lyon, or Lyon, and illustrated by Stephanie Anderson. This book is so beautifully illustrated, and it's not just about weaving. This book would be great if you wanted to if you're a weaver and you'd like to share that with children or grandchildren. It takes you through the entire process, and it's just so beautifully illustrated. And it seems the story takes place in Kentucky, and I would like to share some of the illustrations with you. We start off with the first lambs, and it's beautifully written, very concise, sparse text, talking about when the lambs were born and how white they were, when they first went out into the field, when they were taken to the fair and won first place. Aren't the illustrations gorgeous? So, but then she talks about getting closer to the rainbow, and they shear the sheep. And again, look how sparse the text is, but it tells what's happening, and it tells it very nicely. Now she's going off with her fleece. Skipping a page there. The next page talks about carding the wool, spinning the wool. Sorry for that noise. But now she's going to dye it using natural dyes, and she uses indigo, goldenrod, and madder. Of course, she's going to use more than that because she is going to have a rainbow. Then she's hanging the wool outside to dry. Actually, don't want to skip any of the pages. Apologize for that. Stuck pages. Okay, she's warping her loom. Now she's weaving. And it says, from wool looped across her hand, she weaves in lambs and their mamas. So she's doing some sort of process there. I don't know much about weaving. And look, she was weaving a rainbow. She's woven where she lives and the sheep. I think it's a beautiful book. If you are a weaver and want to share that with children, this would be a great way to get started. And maybe, if you're going to go through the entire process, come back to it at the end just for, to pull the story together, the process together. I love this book, Weaving the Rainbow. And So we will have a giveaway for that book, and I will put over in the Ravelry group in a Pickle Knitting, I will start a new topic, and this topic will say Weaving the Rainbow giveaway. And in there will be a prompt, and what I would like for you to do is to, considering our time of year, a lot of people come up with a word for the year. Some people make New Year's resolutions, other people set goals for the year. A lot of people decide that they're going to make a plan of what their knitting or their crafting is going to be like this particular year. So if you would pick one of those things and just briefly tell us what it is, or give more details if you'd like, that will be our prompt. And my word of the year is going to be grateful or gratitude. And I want to be very mindful of being more grateful every day for everything that I've been blessed with. And I usually have trouble with these words of the year. don't even remember what mine was last year, and I thought about it and came up with this, and then I just didn't pay attention to it because something kept it from being present all the time in my mindfulness. So this year I'm going to try and be very mindful, and I have this little box, and I'm going to sit it in a prominent place to remind me that that's where I want to put my thoughts every day. And one thing I'm very grateful for is having the podcast and so many nice viewers who followed along this year with me since I started. And that reminds me that we do have currently running the 1,000 subscriber giveaway. And I was going to close it out, but I just think I'll give it another 2-week period. I will close that off right before the next podcast that I do, and then I will pick a winner just to give the opportunity for more people. I mentioned it last time that I would add it, and I did as soon as that event happened. But some people may not remember to go back. So with the podcast, this will be a little reminder that if you wanted to participate in that giveaway, go on over to that thread and respond to that prompt. So that's about giveaways and our book. And this book is what I will be giving away in the prompt. This is a hardcover book of Weaving the Rainbow. So now we have some giveaways to announce with some winners. And our first one is in our sock along, knit along. So in that one, I'm not closing it. It stays open all the time. And what I do is, for instance, today I wrote down I wrote down another piece of paper I don't have right here, but I think 191 entries to date, and then I knew where we had ended before, so I drew numbers in that range. So next time I will start with, I think, 192 to whatever the last one is for that period. So once a month I will pull one number, and then the next month I just start over. I don't start over, but I'll start with the next number. So a set of socks has a chance to win, and then the next set. It doesn't matter when you finish them. So it doesn't matter when you start them, when you finish them. Whenever you have a finished pair, post them in the finished object thread, and then the next time I do a drawing, it will be included. So this time, our winner is number 162, Galaxy Aviatrix, I'm not sure. And she knit socks, a pair of socks in, I believe the colorway is called Luke Skywalker, and it was really pretty. A lot of a light color with some pretty, I think, blue and green stripes. I really like those. So Galaxy Aviatrix, if you will send me a private message in Ravelry, I will send your prize out to you. I'm not sure I ever said what the prize was. I have no recollection of it, and I haven't gone back to see, but I did have 2 prizes for the sock along in my cabinet. And so what I'm going to do is give the winner this month the choice, and then whichever one she doesn't choose will be the prize for the next drawing. So it's not the next podcast, it'll be the one after that. So the first choice is this Mountain Colors fingering weight yarn in the Headwaters colorway. It's 100 grams. It is 90% superwash merino wool and 10% nylon. So it's a blue-green, and it has some brown in it as well. It's called Headwaters Mountain Colors. So that's one choice. And then the second choice is 250-gram skeins of Bergeret de France, I think, Gumi 50. And this colorway, they go Imprime Gris. So you need one skein for each sock. So you need the 2 skeins. So the 100 grams and 100 grams. It's in two different skeins. So Galaxy Aviatrix, if you let me know your address, your mailing address, and your name, mailing address, and which one you would prefer, and then I'll save the other one for the next time we draw from the sock knit along. Now the next one we had was our shawl knitting along, and I was so excited to see 29 different shawls in that thread. That was marvelous. I was so excited. And the winner is number 17, Cast On Knit. So Cast On Knit, if you will send me your name and address, I will send to you this purple and green butterfly project bag. It has a little tassel and a little butterfly progress keeper and a detachable handle and a large zipper. It's a large bag, and inside are 2 skeins of Flying Goat Farm yarn in 2 different colors. They are lace weight, and there is a pattern included in here, a pattern and a modification to the pattern so that this amount of yarn would make that shawl. So that's, of course, your choice, what you would do with that. So if you'll let me know where to send this, I'll get it packaged up. And the shawl that Cast On Knit made was the Aced Light Shawl by Gudrun Johnston. And I've done 2 of her shawls before, and I know she writes very nice patterns. It was a very pretty shawl. So thanks for entering, and congratulations. And our third winner is our mitten along. I was so amazed. 50 different entries, well, 49 entries in the mitten along. It was amazing. And some people with the multiple gorgeous colorwork mittens. It was just, I was just so thrilled with it. But our winner was number 30, who is Rose Cottage, and she did a Tin Can Knits pattern. I think it's like the easiest mitten or something, but was her first pair of mittens, and she got to post twice because in the shawl, the sock, any knit along, if that's the first time that you have knit that item, not that particular pattern, but the first time you've knit socks, the first time you've knit mittens, or the first time you've knit a shawl, whatever we're running, you get to enter twice. And her second entry was the one that was number 30. So she had put 29 in and then 30 as well. So I'm so tickled about that. Now, the prize included the Skein Deer Knits Salbu Mitten Club. If Rose Cottage, if you would prefer another pattern, or maybe you already have that, or they are all color work if you don't want to do color work, if you will give me the name of another pattern on Ravelry, I will gift that to you instead. And that prize came with this butterfly bag, which has a little tassel and a little pocket inside, and a detachable handle, and also from Craft House Magic, a set of stitch markers in a little sheet. So, Rose Cottage, if you will let me know where to mail this to and what pattern you'd like for mittens, I will be happy to take care of that just as soon as I can. So congratulations to the 3 winners that we have today. So exciting to always have some prizes going out. Okay, just 2 other little things I thought I'd mention. I showed you the sock blank that I've started a pair of socks on, and I want to use my sock blanks this year, but I was also going to be doing self-striping yarn socks to use up some of my self-striping. And if you enter a pair of socks in self-striping yarn, or even if you stripe them yourself, if that's even more work, that's obviously more work because you have to weave in a lot of ends and change your colors. If you do your own striping because you've striped it, or self-striping yarn, you can enter twice. And I thought I would show you what I'm going to do for self-striping my first one. And that is this lovely skein of yarn. It's this is from the Stitch Together Studio. The color is Dr. Teeth and the Electric Mayhem. It's a gray, and then it has this multicolored band in it, and it makes a micro stripe. I first saw this yarn on the Grocery Girls podcast, and Jody had knit a sock out of it, and I just loved it. Went on to Stitch Together Studios website, and it wasn't available, and then one day, I don't know what made me think to look for it again, and they had it. So I ordered it. I've wanted to get them knit. Now, it's not a self-striping in the traditional way of having 4 or 5 stripes, but it does a micro stripe. So if you want to do micro stripe, that's great too. So that's what I will be doing. But I think I need to get some socks off the needles. I'm not good for having 3 pair of socks at the same time. So I will finish probably my Christmas Eve cast on first, and then I will start these. And then the other thing, I did show this on Instagram, but I finished my socks for the year, the Box of Socks Cow that Kristen of Bull and Vine Yarns and the Yarngasm podcast has run for the last 2 years, and I understand she's doing it again next year. And so this is my box, which I'd shown you before, and all of my socks in it. Now for me, I knit 19 pair this year, but that's not all that I knit. I knit some gift socks as well. So it was a big sock year for me, and next year might be too, just because as I want to do the sock blanks and the self-striping yarn. So probably be another big sock year, but want to share those two things with you. So I guess it's time to say goodbye. I want to thank you if you stuck out this long for staying with the podcast today, and for all of those who watched my Vlogmas this year, thank you for that too. That was a lot of fun. Thank you, those of you who watched. It's all about children's literature, so if you don't have an interest in children's literature, there wasn't a fiber connection with those books. It was all about holidays, Christmas time holiday books. So, you know, it wasn't for everybody, but those who did watch, thank you so much, and I really appreciated your comments, and it kept me going through the process. So looking forward to a lot of knitting going on here right now, and seeing you again in a couple weeks. Bye-bye. If this was a letter, this would be P.S. The P.S. to this letter is I always have a shawl back here, and I never say what it is. And I've had a couple times people have asked, so I thought, you know, I'm going to start trying to remember. I've got to write it down for myself to tell you what the shawl is back here. This is the Reyna shawl, R-E-Y-N-A, and this shawl has been knit so many times on Ravelry. I think it's a free pattern. It is a really fun, easy pattern. I would say if you're doing it to put a stitch marker on either side of the center spine, that really helped me stop making little mistakes. This is done in Woolen Vine yarn in the Outlander colorway. So this is the Reyna, R-E-Y-N-A shawl. And then I don't usually have a shawl on because I'm very warm-blooded, but it is 12 degrees out this morning, and I kept the thermostat turned down so I wouldn't get hot, and I put on a shawl today. This is the Aurora shawl in Seven Sisters Arts Meridian yarn, and I think it's Meridian, okay. But Seven Sisters Art, and the colorway was Aurora. They dyed this for Helen Stewart to use, and when she designed this pattern, and I love this shawl. I love this I-cord edging that you were creating as you went. It's got a picot bind off here. It used 7 colors, and it's a elongated triangle, but it has a bend to. It's not 3 straight sides. It's got a bend to that one side. So a very nice, and one of the few shawls I can wear fairly easily. But this is the Aurora shawl by Helen Stewart of Curious Handmade, and this was from Shawl Society 1. Okay, it's really bye-bye. See ya.